This video is going to be a little different than what I usually talk about, and it's something that I wasn't really going to share publicly because, frankly, it's pretty embarrassing. See, myself, my team, and my company were taken advantage of by someone that we trusted. An ex-team member embezzled over $230,000 from us over the course of nearly 2 years, and we just discovered it in 2020. And in this video, I'm going to break down how it happened, how it was uncovered, and the guardrails that we've put in place since so that it doesn't happen again. Now, before we get started, just know that I was kind of told, hey, maybe don't talk about this publicly because it might make you look stupid and incompetent because you let this happen, which, yeah, it really shouldn't have happened. But guess what you might not know? It actually happens a lot, especially to small businesses for reasons that I'm going to get into in this video. Fraud and other forms of white-collar crime cost U.S. organizations more than $400 billion every year, and the most costly abuses tend not to occur in these huge organizations, which is what I thought, but in companies with less than 100 employees. I then read this tweet thread about fraud recently that said, if you own a business and someone hasn't stolen from you, either you haven't owned it for very long or you haven't found the fraud yet. And that's kind of sad if you think about it, but rather than sweep it under the rug, I'm going to talk about it today so that you know what to look for. For some background, let me tell you about my company, BestSelf Co. We create tools to help you think bigger, achieve more while enjoying today. And the products we sell help people become their best self through goal setting, successful habits, and intentional relationships. We launched in August 2015 on Kickstarter, and we used that money to both sell pre-orders and also launch the business. To date, we have never taken outside money or investors. Every dollar has either been through customer sales or our own pocket or line of credit when we needed it. So we sell through Shopify, and we also sell on Amazon. And I'm giving this background so you kind of know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, let's cut to November 2019 when things started to not add up. And we noticed something really weird was going on with our Amazon listings, specifically with other people selling our product. And for background, when you sell a product on Amazon, even if you owned it and created it, you don't own the listing. Again, even if you created it yourself, anyone can sell against you on Amazon if they say, I have this product also. And because anyone can sell against you, the best price wins because Amazon want to give the best deals to their customers. So you can put your own product up there and someone can come on there and say, oh, I want to sell it for lower, and then they win what they call the buy box. So this is what was happening to us. Someone was beating us on Amazon selling our own product. Like, how is this possible? That's what I was asking. When we sell wholesale or we sell bulk orders, we have customers sign, basic terms saying, I'm not going to sell on your Amazon listing, because then we're in a price war with ourselves, essentially. When we sell wholesale or bulk orders, we have customers sign off on basic terms saying, you're not going to sell on Amazon, because then we're essentially fighting with ourselves over price, and we sold to someone at wholesale. So it just doesn't make sense, and that's why we have them sign these terms. Don't sell against us on Amazon. Now, in this case, we can see that the person that's selling has at least 75 units of our product to sell. So I went to my logistics manager to see if we had made any bulk or wholesale orders of that specific product, and maybe we could reach out to the person that was selling them. Now, at the time, this was a relatively new product, and he said, we haven't done any bulk or wholesale orders, so it wasn't going to come from us. So where is it coming from? Given that we design and produce our own products, there's only 3 ways that someone can be selling against us on our listing on Amazon. And here's what they were. It was 1, it actually isn't our product and it's a counterfeit, and that happens all the time. So that was something I was thinking it might be. 2 is our factory is creating more of them and selling them on the side. Or 3, someone's stealing our inventory. Now, I ordered a few to see if they were ours, and they were either very good counterfeits or they were coming from our inventory. Number 2, we have a long-standing relationship with our factory, like from the beginning. We didn't believe that they would risk all of that for some random new product. So the only thing remaining was that someone was stealing our inventory. So I started having our logistics manager do an audit to see if anything was missing. This meant, reviewing inventory logs, what we ordered from the factory, what arrived, finding out if there was any deficits, what we sold versus what we have in stock. Just a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of numbers. And while that was happening, I got a personal name attached to the LLC that was selling against us on Amazon. Now, I'm gonna get into the weeds here of how I figured out who it was. So if you don't wanna know the gory details, it's not really that gory, it's a lot of paperwork, but skip to the next part. However, the district attorney for the state that ended up convicting this person told me that I had missed my calling in life due to the detective work that I'm gonna walk you through. So once I had name of the person behind the Amazon LLC, I went onto our Shopify store to see if this person had ever bought from us. And I found one order. One time they bought 2 products. It was actually a very normal looking order, so I didn't think that this could be it. After that, I went straight into our 3PL system. This is the system that controls our warehouses. If we've shipped orders out from there, if we sent an order to this person, it would be in there. Now, this time when I input the name of the person from the Amazon LLC, I was able to see 2 orders in there for both 100 units of one product and 200 units of the other product. These are the 2 products that someone was selling against us on Amazon. My first thought was this had been some sort of mistake with someone buying from us. It said there were Shopify orders, so when I clicked on the order name to see, who those orders were from, the order went to our Shopify store, but everything in the order was completely different to what was shipped out. So I'm seeing 2 different pieces of knowledge in 2 different systems, supposedly for the same order. What I realized had happened was that this was a real order that was legitimate inside our Shopify store, but when it went to our shipping 3PL system, it was duplicated, and then the duplicated order was edited in the system so that every single piece of information was changed. And this way it could stay hidden, it was under the radar because it didn't look new. So I knew the key to finding out who edited this order was the reason behind what was happening on Amazon. Now everyone on the team have their own logins, so as long as the software stored edit logs, I was going to be able to figure out who edited that order, and whoever that was the key to this. So I called the 3PL to speak with someone in the tech department to find out if they kept these records, and if so, who edited these orders and changed all of the information. Luckily, they did keep that info, and they told me who it was on my team that made the edits. It was our logistics and inventory manager, the one that had said that they'd never made any wholesale or bulk orders. This person, let's call him Alejandro. Now, Alejandro was hired in February 2018 as our inventory and wholesale manager, and he was in charge of both making sure that the products got from our factories to our warehouse and onto customers in as fast and as efficient a way as possible. Between handling logistics between factories, freight forwarders, or 3PL, he would also handle any wholesale or bulk orders. And that might seem like a lot, but at BestSelf, we're mainly direct to consumer. So wholesale and bulk orders are really not a big part of our business. We answer inbound inquiries, but that's pretty much it. So him handling orders like that was pretty minimal work. It's basically responding to emails that come in and getting those products shipped out to those people. However, despite this being a small piece, it was an area that we were intending to grow and investing into. So I worked with this person for almost 2 years. He attended team retreats a few times a year. He also lived in New York when I did, so we would go out socially for like comedy shows or drinks with friends. So even though we were a remote team, this person was not really that remote to me. He even came to my going away party in October 2018 before I moved to Austin, and then soon after he moved to Portland, and then he moved to Denver. Now, one thing I will say about this guy that I should have been suspicious of was he was really mysterious. When I look back, I should have been more suspicious because he was like a black hole, as in you barely knew anything about him. 2 years in, I could name the things on one hand. It was easier to get blood out of a stone than to get any sort of a personal story out of him or anything about him. You know the type where you tell them a story about you and they listen, but they never give any personal details or opinions on anything. And he also would move from one city to the other without really mentioning it. And one day he's on a call and there's a dog barking while we're on the call, and that's how we learned that he had got a puppy a few months ago and had never mentioned it once. So you could have told me he was in the CIA and I would have been like, yeah, that everything makes sense. So that's the kind of personality that I'm talking about. So back to me learning that he was the one that edited the order. Assuming positive intent, which is one of our core values of BestSelf, I'm thinking, okay, how could this be legitimate? How could this be okay? Thinking maybe he had sold to this person, but he didn't have them sign the right terms so that they didn't sell against us on Amazon. That was like my first thought, is like, how would this be okay? But if this was the case, first of all, where's the money for these orders? And secondly, why go in and do all of that trouble to edit it in order to disguise it? At this point, there's assuming positive intent, and then there's just being naive AF. So I scheduled a Zoom meeting to see what he had to say about it. But I knew, whatever it is he said, whether it was negligence or malice, I'd have to fire him either way because this just wasn't making sense. Now, at the same time I was due to be speaking with him on Zoom, I had asked another of my team members to go into his work email and see what she could find and see if anything was adding up. She messages me and she says it's empty. He had deleted every single email in his inbox prior to our meeting. That's extremely suspicious. I asked him, Alejandro, why is your work email completely empty? He told me, I'm just trying to save space. I ended up firing him right then.
I don't appreciate you telling me what to do, so clean out your desk, you are through.
And then because I was admin, I restored all of the emails so that I could understand the full extent of what's going on. Because I was like, this is not the only thing that I happened to find. There's other stuff that must be going on. So while initially he was fired due to the fact that he'd shown to be negligent, it was only after I got into his email that I started to understand what I initially believed to be negligence turned out to be malicious and intentional theft of an insane amount. So this was not 2 orders that he sold on the side and pocketed the money for. This was thousands and thousands of dollars that he had stolen from us. And the person that was selling against us on Amazon, he had been emailing them saying, don't sell on Amazon because we were gonna find out how this happened. So he not only knew the person that was selling on Amazon, there was desperate emails from him to this person trying to get them to stop selling because now they were affecting him. It took us weeks to fully understand the scope of it because he had tried to cover his tracks so much and in some ways succeeded a little. So as I audited the books further, I discovered the whole scheme of what it is that he did. So Alejandro used his access to intercept legitimate customer requests for the product and then inserted a link to his own payment account that looked like BestSelf, had our logo on it, had the mailing address, everything like that, but it was attached to him personally and not the company. So he created these invoices, had the customers fraudulently pay him instead of the company. Then what he did is he would disguise the orders, like I kind of just mentioned, going into an existing order and editing it so that he could get the goods to them without us realizing it. And that was the whole duplicating an existing order and then changing everything about it. So in a nutshell, we recognized none of the revenue from these orders, and yet we had to pay for all of the costs of the product, any customization that he was kind enough to do, and also shipping. In total, he stole over $180,000 of actual revenue from the company. So by intercepting these funds, that's what went into his personal bank account. And on top of this stolen money, he cost us over $88,000 in lost product, in shipping costs, and all these like tiny little costs that added up, not to mention like lost revenue from the products that we could have sold. And this is what we've been able to uncover in the 12 months since firing him in January. Now, I'm sure at this point you're watching this thinking, okay, how the hell did you not notice that? Like, how does people just ship stuff out of your warehouse without you knowing? And trust me, I also thought the same thing. But at the time, there was a lot of stuff going on in the business, and there was a lot of big systemic issues within the company, several big ones at the time, that created a perfect environment to enable this fraud. And as I've been researching white-collar crime, this is very common, is when there's a lot of stuff going on at once, it's very easy for someone to prey on this. And I think that's what Alejandro did. However, despite all of this, ultimately, it's my responsibility. But here are the guardrails that we should have had in place, that we didn't, that would have made this much less likely. The biggest thing is a robust inventory management software. So at the time, our inventory was controlled on spreadsheets and the numbers were easily fudgeable, and we didn't really do product audits at the time. I just trusted that people were doing their jobs. We're a small company, I don't want to micromanage, so I just trusted the numbers that I was seeing on the sheet because at the time I had no reason not to. The next thing was the lack of oversight on credit card charges. So in a previous video, I talked about, business partnership, and at the time, my relationship with my ex-business partner was very frayed and we weren't communicating. And there was a credit card he set up that he had access to that was not really being reviewed to ensure all of the charges made sense. And I didn't have access to it at the time. So once we discovered this fraud, my ex-partner told me that he had gone to Alejandro about a bunch of FedEx charges he was seeing on his account. And Alejandro had lied and said that they were legitimate business expenses, and my partner hadn't checked up on it. He just assumed that he was telling the truth. And so all of these charges that weren't being picked up might have been how we figured out what was going on, but nobody was really watching. And that brings me to the next part, which is financial watchmen. So we had a bookkeeper and we had an executive hire who were not really doing their job of being a watchman over our finances and our inventory levels. Due to this, we didn't really have a good grasp of our financials as far as here's the amount of money we took in for this many units of product, and this how many units of product we shipped out. And you really need to know that at a granular level to be able to understand if something is going wrong. Now, a few weeks before the fraud was uncovered, I had hired an external CFO company to help get a handle on our finances in general. I am confident that it would have been uncovered very quickly had we had this company on sooner. Now, you know what happened, you know who did it, but what actually happened to Alejandro? So everyone I spoke to, from like an ex-detective to the head of police, said that white-collar crime was rarely prosecuted if they steal less than like 500K to $1 million. This seems insane to me, given if someone robs a liquor store or has some weed, then they're gonna go to prison. Regardless, I gathered the evidence as I wanted to have him criminally prosecuted.
I will find you.
Not because I thought I was gonna get money back. I knew if it wasn't stopped this time, it may embolden him to do something bigger to another small business in the future. Here's something funny that I wanna just put out there for any criminals watching this video. If you're stealing from your company, do not use your work email for your personal Uber account. And if you do that and you're fired, you should definitely change that email address. And here's why. Alejandro has had his Uber account still connected to his work email since before he was fired. We learned this when we were able to reset his email and get those back. In fact, it's still connected to this day. And he doesn't know this. And he also doesn't drive. So this means that every car that he ordered or Uber Eats meals he got delivered, we knew all about it. We knew what he ordered, how much he tipped, where he went, what time he got back at. We knew everything. So after months of back and forth with the detective in Denver, he had enough evidence to put a warrant out for the arrest. And because I can see his Uber activity, I was able to tell the detective, yeah, he's still in Denver. The benefit of hindsight made me realize that Alejandro has probably done something like this before. Maybe he hasn't gotten caught before, but in the time I've known him, he lived in New York. Then he moved to Portland very randomly, and then seemingly overnight, he moved to Denver. Like seemingly as in like we had flights to a retreat booked from Portland and he had to change those because he moved out of nowhere. So I thought, okay, if he knows he has a warrant out there, there's a good chance that he's just gonna move to another city and we'll never get him. Now, before the arrest, the detective told me that he would be placing a call to Alejandro and let him know that he was gonna have charges filed against him. And this is after 6 months of no contact at all from me or anyone on the team besides sending, like a W-2 or something. So if you can imagine, he's been living his life for the last 6 months thinking he got away with this crime scot-free, only to get a call from a detective telling him of the charges.
I told you I would find you.
He must have shit a brick. And so what do you think he had to say for himself, whenever he got that call? Of course, at first he denied it, and then the detective said that he had his bank records and he could see the transfers, so there was nothing really to argue here.
Oh boy.
Oh boy, what?
You're fucked.
And then Alejandro said, oh, I've had problems with identity theft. I have yet to hear since or before this about a case of identity theft where someone puts money into your bank account. So sign me up for that one because I've never heard of it before. And of course, the detective's like, yeah, that's not for real. As of January 11th, 2020, Alejandro pleaded guilty to theft and digital cybercrime. He did not go to jail. He got 3 years probation, given that this was the first thing on his record. And it actually all happened in virtual court. So I was able to be there, and the judge commented, okay, you're not going to jail because this is your first offense, but boy, you started off big. And that's a story of how we had a team member who we had trusted, but maybe shouldn't have, how they embezzled from us, how we discovered it, and then how we held them responsible. However, like I said, there were so many ways of things that slipped through the cracks internally that allowed this theft to happen. So it wasn't just he was this mastermind. Of course he wasn't, hence the Uber thing, but it's important to learn what actually happened and what guardrails you can put in place so that this never happens again. Now, since this happened to me, I've heard quite a few stories from business owners of either this happening on a smaller scale or a bigger scale. And whenever I shared this story, it gave some friends of mine ideas of guardrails that they should be putting in place because they could see how easily this stuff can happen. Let me know in the comments if you like this video, if I really should have been public about this happening to us, because I really want to share some of the behind the scenes of stuff that happens in businesses a lot, but often doesn't get talked about. So I hope you like this video. I hope this doesn't happen to you, and I hope that you've learned some stuff.